rest of his life.
I'm sorry, Danny. I've been so busy with schoolwork and keeping up with friends, I haven't really had time to come see you and your father.
My father's been asking me repeatedly when you'll come to study with us.
We do spend most of our time together.
Well, my father's beginning to think that you're avoiding him. He wants you to learn with us.
Well, I'm coming now, aren't I?
Indeed you are.
So, Ruben, you are a good mathematician. Now we will see what you know about more important things, yes? We shall begin. Where in the Mishnah does it talk about a woman who dies and her husband has no children, and what happens to her?
In Maseches Yevamos, the first Mishnah.
Good. And in the Torah?
Dvarim, chapter 25.
Good. Go on.
If a man dies childless, his widow is obligated to marry his brother in order for the dead brother to have an heir.
Good. And what is the difficulty in such a case?
Well,
one of the two wives is the daughter of the living brother.
Meaning?
Meaning the dead brother had married his own niece.
Yes, cheat, obviously. So what's the problem with that?
if the living brother marries her, he'll be marrying his own daughter.
But he can't marry her. The Torah forbids that. That would be incest.
Of course the Torah forbids it. But what about the second wife?
Well, he can't marry her either, according to the first Mishnah.
He can't marry her either. Does everyone hold that way?
The school of Hillel holds that way. But the school of Shammai holds that the other wife is permitted to marry her dead husband's brother.
The school of Shammai, yes. And what is the difficulty in that case?
Well, according to the school of Hillel, because the other wife was forbidden to the living brother, if they have a child, that child would be a mamzer.
A mamzer, yes.
And that child is unfit to marry another fit Jew.
Yes. And according to Beis Shammai?
According to Beit Shammai, the child is a fit Jew and is permitted to marry a fit Jew.
A fit Jew, yes. And how does the Mishnah end?
While the school of Shammai did not refrain from marrying women of the school of Hillel, nor did the school of Hillel refrain from marrying women of the school of Shammai.
Good.
I remember that there's more.
Yes.
Well, the Mishnah also says that even though they differed on matters of ritual purity, the women still lent each other their pots and pans, prepared food together, and even ate in each other's houses.
Yes, Ruben. The Mishnah does say that. But how could that be possible?
The Mishnah says so.
I still do not understand how such a thing could be possible.
Well, maybe they didn't ask each other too many questions.
Later in the Jerusalem Talmud, it says the school of Shammai never put into practice what they taught in the case of the childless dead husband.
Who said that?
Rav said it.
How did Rav know?
What do you mean?
Well, he lived hundreds of years after Hillel and Shammai.
Rav was a great sage.
But he lived in Babylonia and not Palestine where Hillel and Shammai lived. My father once told me that in the Jerusalem Talmud, it says that when one of the sages say something in the Torah never actually happened, it only means that they didn't understand it.
You doubt the greatness of Rav?
In the Jerusalem Talmud, it says that God made sure nothing wrong ever happened in such a marriage.
And it becomes God's job. My father once told me that in the Jerusalem Talmud it says, both sides in this dispute speak in God's voice. I think it's great that they respected each other's decisions.
Perhaps, but there are limits to such respect. Daniel, tut mir a toive and bring uns a glass of tea. Do me a favor and bring us a glass of tea.
Oh, really, Reg Saunders, I don't...
Daniel, please. Ruven, open up to Kiddush in Daf Mem Amud Aleph at the bottom of the page where it says, Noyach loy leodom navor aveiro baseise. It is good for a person to sin in secret. You see it? Read.
Better a man should sin in secret than profane God's name in public. For it is said, to sin is to lose one's future life.
Good enough. You have a good head. Now we shall see about your neshama. Ruven, my son Daniel spends every afternoon reading in the public library.
How?
You are surprised? Do not be. It's a small neighborhood. He disappears for weeks on end in the afternoon. I want to know where he is. So now I know. Some afternoons he spends with you. Some afternoons he spends with your father. Ruben, I want to know what he reads, and I want you to tell me.
I don't know what to say.
You are being loyal. That is good in a friend. But hear me out. I will not live forever, and my son Daniel must take my place. My son is my most precious possession. I must know what he reads, and I cannot ask him, so I am asking you. Please. Please.
He reads a lot. Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, he's very interested in psychology and the human mind.
Psychology. Ribono shel olam, was can I done? What can I do? Tsar Gidl Bonim, the pain of raising children, so many troubles. But Ruven, you and your father will be a good influence on my son, yes? You will not make a goy out of my son, yes? So, Ruven, tell me more about your father's method of Talmud study. He corrects the text, yes? What do you think of this?
I think it's correct in the cases where the text and...
What just happened? What happened while I was gone? What did you say to him?
Danny, it's okay.
What happened? Why don't you talk to me?
Ruven, I am sorry.
I'm gonna go find Danny. Danny, he knows about everything. He asked me what you were reading, and, well, I told him. I figured he'd find out eventually, and I couldn't lie to him. I'm sorry.
I wish he would have asked me.
Why didn't he?
I told you, he believes in silence. Once when I was 10 or 11, I came to him with some problem I had. I was complaining. He told me to shut my mouth and look into my soul for the answer. I should look into my soul for the answer. Since then, we just don't talk.
I don't understand that at all.
I'm not sure I understand it myself, but that's the way he is. I don't know how he found out I was reading behind his back, but I'm glad he knows about it. At least now I won't have to walk around in the library scared to death.
Well, what happens when you try to talk to him?
I can't. It might sound crazy to you, but I can't talk to him.
I think you ought to at least try.
I can't talk to him. Don't you understand English? I can't talk to my father. I'm sorry if you don't understand. I've explained it as best as I can.
Danny,
How is everything at Rep Saunders today?
Danny's being raised in silence.
Silence? What do you mean he's being raised in
He and
silence?
his father hardly ever talk, except when they study Talmud. That's what Danny said.
Oh, dear God.
What?
I heard something like this in Europe, but I did not believe it.
Heard what, Allah?
I cannot explain. I cannot explain what I do not understand. I'm relieved that Rep Saunders knows about Danny's reading. I was concerned about all the subterfuge. I do not often agree with him, but I respect him. He is a great leader.
And why can't you talk to Danny?
He has talked to Danny. He has talked to Danny through you. It is never pleasant to be a buffer, Reuben. And you are learning that it is not always easy to be a real friend.
The war continued in Europe. The Allied armies were advancing, and by spring, rumors began to spread that the war would soon be over. Then, in April, like a thunderclap, came the news of President Roosevelt's death. No one could believe it. I never thought of him as being mortal, and it seemed absurd for him to die, especially with the war so close to an end and his new United Nations ready to meet. On the day he died, I remember riding home in the trolley in complete silence. I sat next to an old man with a wilted flower in his buttonhole, who held thick glasses in one hand and wept openly the entire trip. I'll never forget him, and that sense of loss, irreparable loss, that we all felt on that day. My father and I now listen to the radio at every meal, something which we had never done before. Then, in April, came the news of Hitler's death and the end of the war. And with this news of great rejoicing came the news of the concentration camps and the mounting death tolls of 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 5 million, as many as 6 million Jews slaughtered throughout Europe.
The world kills us. Ay, how the world kills us. It used to be a village of Jews here, a city of Jews there, but now all of Europe gone. And what a Jewish world it was. Synagogues, schools, markets, books, why even the muddy road